Previously on JSpeaks.
Nature hasn't gotten away from us, we've just gotten away from it. And it's always been here to assist us in healing. And I feel like being outdoors is one of the best spaces to heal. And I just want to encourage people of all backgrounds to just get outside and just start to explore. You'll never really realize how much you'll like it until you're out here. So that's really what I try to do with Indigenous Soul, is to kind of bridge the gap between communities that would not otherwise be able to access the outdoor spaces, and let them, try to educate as well, because there is a lot of fear associated with being out in the wilderness. What would we consider like some tinder, like a tinder bundle. You can make, this one is jute, but you can go out and you can forage for your own, and you can make your own. Of course, I always try to encourage dead, down, and detached. We don't really want to pull from living trees or living plants or anything like that. And there's different ways of making fires. There's striking. I can get some sparks here, I think. Might be. So you have some sparks kind of going. Eventually one will fall. I'm not going to do this on your stuff. But you can have one that'll fall eventually. See, like one fell over here.
Whoa.
And you can get it to kind of land on one of these, and you can end up with some fire.
And you put that around like leaves?
Mm-hmm. Well, leaves burn and they fly. I also want to let people know you cannot outrun a bear. I've heard people say, oh, you could just run, but you can't outrun a bear. The slowest one will hit about 35 to 40 miles per hour. So there's no, you're not gonna be able to outrun one.
So if one's approaching you, you just
for a black bear,
accept it.
No, you gotta accept it. But for a black bear, you just want to make yourself look bigger. I've been this close to copperheads, and they've never struck out at me or anything. So.
Wow, you must have a very calming aura. I mean, so, all of these animals.
Yeah, but even when I was a little girl, I was like that. Like ivy, you have poison oak, you have poison sumac, and they all kind of look alike, but they're pretty different. You'll usually find them growing at like the bases of trees. They're all native species in North Carolina, so they're here.
Introducing Indigenous Soul, yoga, hiking, wellness, and adventure.
Those of you who are new to my channel, welcome.
Just asked her one day, and it was the scariest moment.
Get off at 5:30, so I'm not making it for school until 6 o'clock.
Yes, yeah, the first year was fun.
Eye-opening, okay. Our product is going to benefit our community just as much as any type of hardship. Like, I've experienced true hardship growing up. I'm from Philadelphia. I live in urban communities all my life. And I just think we balance each other out.
Hello everyone. For those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. And for those of you who are subscribed to JSpeaks, thank you so much and welcome back. As you know, it is my mission, it is my passion to bring to you all conversations that are positive, motivational, educational, and informational. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to be here with Mariah King and Princess Rahman, and to introduce you all to their company, Windy Hill Play, a nonprofit childcare organization located right here in Durham, North Carolina. Their mission is to create accessible, flexible, and abundant spaces for children to play freely and grow in confidence. Their childcare model is unique in that it is fully customizable and centered around play. Windy Hill Play creates space and boundaries for children to move freely, explore their capabilities, practice critical thinking, and use their imagination. Ladies and gentlemen, please sit back, relax, but most importantly, listen. And hopefully after today's episode, you will understand for yourself that childcare is a basic need, not a luxury. And Windy Hill Play is and will continue to dive headfirst into closing the gap around childcare and tackle problems such as rigid schedules, unaffordable rates, limited capacity, and lack of flexibility. Well, Princess and Mariah, I'm truly excited to be here. Thank you so much for taking the opportunity to want to speak with me and, dive a little bit more deeper into your company, Windy Hill Play. But before we, officially get started, if you don't mind, sharing with me, looking at the camera as well, where are we right now? Please also share a little bit about yourselves. How did you meet? And also, share a few words about Windy Hill Play. Whoever wants to start.
All right. Well, my name is Mariah King. I am a child care provider at Windy Hill Play. I'm also CEO and a parent first. So Windy Hill Play started a little over a year ago now, and really it started as an idea that came up just because there was so much that seemed to be missing in the childcare sector, and I just started to brainstorm about what it would look like if things looked different, and I had no idea where to start, and I just started walking the path, and that's when I met my now incredible business partner, who opened up the door for what it looked like to turn an idea into action and start building that out into a business. And I know, when she came through the door, I'll tell you, so the reason why I knew she was the one is I come into my house one day, and she not only has my children, her child, she has the neighbor children as well, and I believe one other person. Altogether, it was about 10 children, and the house was spotless. She's just vibing, she's playing with the children, and I'm looking, I was like, something is happening. I don't know what it is, but I can see this turning into something. And I just asked her one day, and it was the scariest moment. I remember where I was when I called her, and I said, this is going to be a leap of faith, but what do you think about jumping ship on security, on stability, on the things that we have been just programmed to think a career looks like, and do something different? And to my very much surprise, she said, let's do it. And we kicked off 2 months later in our family home, and we've just been building a community ever since, and it's been built off of conversations where her and I are just talking about what we were looking for in childcare when we had an infant, and we both come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, we have different stories, and yet it wasn't meeting either one of our needs fully. And what we were really looking for are people that genuinely wanted to love our children as much as we loved them.
Exactly. How do I follow that up? But no, so my name is Princess Rahman. I am the COO at Windy Hill Play, and as Mariah shared, that's my personality. I've spent too much time living the way you're supposed to live. I've worked in corporate offices, I've worked 9-to-5 jobs, and I just felt like as far as childcare, my needs were not being met. Specifically because I was working 8 to 5:30, which is standard. Most Americans work that time frame, but if I have to be to work at 8, which means I have to drop my child off somewhere at 7:30 a.m. Most schools don't open to 8 a.m. So that was leading me to have to pay for not only before care, but after care, because I get off at 5:30, so I'm not making it to our school until 6 o'clock. So I was just so frustrated with the whole system, and even before Mariah called me, I was already planning my exit strategy. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, but I cannot be stuck on this hamster wheel any longer. So I started to nanny on the side, because I was like, are other parents experiencing what I'm experiencing? And then also, there's money to be made, because it's a necessity. It's like your light bill. It's, you know, it's your gas. It's a necessity. People need childcare to be able to run their households. So I started doing it on the weekends, and as I'm continuing to listen to these stories, and I wasn't charging market rate, because at that time I wasn't certified in any type of childcare. I had experience because I have 4 siblings and I have a child of my own. That was what I was bringing to the table. So I'm listening to their stories and their frustrations, especially parents that had infants, and I'm just like, there has to be a better way. So I always say it was literally God's timing, that when Mariah called me, I was like, girl, yes. Like I just was like, you know what, I've served my time in this job. I've done it at every angle I could possibly think of. The only way to see true change is to do something that is out of the ordinary. So, you know, we started 2 months later, and I don't regret it. And I always tell Mariah, you know, there were times when business was slow, and I was looking at my savings, and I was like, did I make the right decision? I'm looking at my baby girl, and I'm like, you know, she's never experienced, thank God, any type of hardship. Like, I've experienced true hardship growing up. You know, I'm from Philadelphia. I lived in an urban community all my life. My mom was a single parent. So in no way, shape, or form did I ever want to have her see me struggle or be in that type of environment. But if I'm like, if I don't take these risks, I'll never know. And I always wonder, what if I had just took the opportunity to not only change my life, but to change hers as well? So, you know, we had slow days. We weren't getting a lot of families, so we were focusing on marketing and just trying to, you know, reach our community. And I told Mariah, even if this doesn't work out, I'm glad that we took the chance. I'm glad that we stood firm in what we believe childcare should look like. I'm glad that our children have got to spend an entire summer with us, not just weekends, not just evenings, but literally we had so much fun that summer. And it was just a breath of fresh air. We were like, how are we working 9 to 5 this whole time? So yeah, and I think Windy Hill Play cultivates that experience. Like, when you drop your kid off, like we always say, we want you to feel like you're dropping your child off at grandmom's house or auntie's house, where we're going to love on your child as much as we love our own, because that's the environment. We don't want to be like traditional childcare places where it's just checks and balances, you know, a fee for a service for a fee. We want to be so much more than that, and I think that's what Windy Hill Play really is.
Wow, love both of your answers, and I totally agree with you. Without any risk, there isn't any reward. I'm so glad that you both took that opportunity, and it seems like Windy Hill Play is doing very successful.
Yes.
Now, can we get some dates? So, when did Windy Hill Play start? Or, you know, when was that phone call that Mariah made to you? Do you remember?
Yeah, so the phone call was in February.
Yep. I think it was like February 21st.
Yeah, February. Yes, and we did some planning.
Of this year?
Of last year.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and my birthday is March 2nd. So, you know, I'm like, okay, let me get through my birthday, enjoy this freedom and security. Because, you know, when you planning to step away from a job, every cent counts. And I'm like, okay, let me take this one last vacation with no care in the world, and then we're going to get to business. So we officially started in April.
Yes, yep. So we started the business in April, and then I think we opened doors on May. Yeah,
yes, we started the business planning and everything in April, and then we officially opened May 18th. Yes.
And then you said that you got recently certified as a nonprofit?
Yes, so then and this was part of the journey too, because when I went into it, I knew that my personal vision was to build it into a nonprofit. But this is a really hard conversation. Like, you don't know how to navigate this conversation when you're trying to start a business, you're trying to build credibility, you're building a community. You don't even know if that one part is going to work, and let alone to turn it into a nonprofit. And nonprofits have a very different structure. And so it was in October. It was right before October that I started talking to Princess about what that would look like, what it means to be a nonprofit, because the business structure is different in terms of just accountability, and our roles become different. It's like we're no longer just childcare providers.
Right.
We are now moving into this executive space, and if we want to build this into something that grows, then we need to start talking more about what makes our model different than the other models that are out there. And so I asked her, and at the time, I think that both of us were both a little weird.
Yes, because listen, I was one of those people, when I hear nonprofit, my mind automatically went to no money. And I was like, wait, I didn't leave my job to come here and not make money. But I always say, nonprofit is profit for the people, and then for-profit business is profits for the business. So with nonprofits, yeah, we still are making an income, but we're using our resources differently. Our profit is going to benefit our community just as much as it benefits us. So once I wrapped my head around that, I was like, I like this nonprofit. Like, that's me at my core, like my personality. Like, I love being able to help people while I'm helping myself. Like, I've never been, just for me, for my gain type of person. So once I got my mind around it, and Mariah explained it a little bit to me, I was definitely on board to become a nonprofit. And I think we just gel well together. Like, I think with her big ideas, I'm the type of person she can put them on, and I can kind of go work my way through it, and I'll be like, okay, let me get back to you about that on Friday, because I never like to process anything in real time, because we got 10 kids running around, and she could say, hey, I just bought a spaceship, and I'm like, okay, cool, that sounds good. Like,
pretty much what this land is.
Exactly. So, and I just think we balance each other out well in that aspect. Like, she's going to shoot for the stars, and I'm going to say, well, maybe if we land on the moon, we can still make something work. And I just love that balance between us. I love our relationship, and like we always say, we're friends first, business partners second. And all of our kids, all of our parents, they're our family, and then customers second. And I think when you respect people in that regard, it's easy to be transparent. It's easy to have hard conversations, because it's like, you my girl, like, we're friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how we kind of got to the nonprofit side of things, and we don't see ourselves turning back anytime soon.
Oh yeah, because at this point, the nonprofits already opened doors, and this is actually something that Princess built out, was a partnership with a nonprofit here in Durham with families that are moving forward, and it's been an incredible partnership, just working with them and learning their administrative system, so that way we can help support them in a way that we haven't seen anything remotely close to that partnership between state and nonprofit organizations, where we're able to provide childcare for them as a nonprofit partner. So they could go the for-profit route, but it's one of those things that we, as a person who require accountability, are working with other peoples who also have levels of accountability. It makes that partnership just more natural, if that makes sense, rather than wondering, okay, so we're transferring our energy to someone and we don't know where that energy is going. It's just, and of course there's different ways that they're able to meet that need through different state subsidies, but because of the space that we fill with being flexible, we're able to fill that child care space in a much different way. For example, if a parent is in the process of getting that assistance through the state for their child to go into a child care program, there's time in between that. And that time in between, that parent still has to, bring in an income. They're going through a big life transition, and we're able to help them make that transition.
And what we don't recognize, and this is like in patterns in the childcare industry, is that parents go through transitions a lot. Parenting in itself is a huge transition, and we need to be able to support parents as they learn who they are in that role as parents, which means meeting them in that gap time, meeting them in their needs, not just when they finally have a source of income and they can afford to put their child into childcare. To find that source of income, sometimes you need just that person who comes in and is like, we want to love on your child. Because in that, and in that transition time, there's already so much vulnerability. So imagine being in a vulnerable state, but knowing that your child is with someone that genuinely cares, not only about your child, but about your success, about you reaching your goals, and asking you and being comfortable having those conversations about where are you, where do you see yourself, and that's like, I see, especially like the way that Princess meets people, the way we see people, they're not just the parents that are dropping off their children. They very much are welcome to come and stay and talk with us. It's like sometimes we have to find that balance.
We're like, okay,
we want to talk, but you can see
because they've got stay and hang out. You're like, okay, you're paying us for childcare. Go handle your business. But yeah, I just think currently, I think society is kind of harsh, especially on, parenting and what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing, that it's made people, afraid to be vulnerable, afraid to be honest, afraid to ask for exactly what they need. We have, so many moms that kind of beat around the bush and they say, well, is it okay if I bring them this time? Or what time do you need to drop your child off, and what time do you need? Like, one mom, she had a job interview, but she had to go get some clothes for the interview and then go on the interview. So she was afraid that she could only drop the child off to go on the interview. And she was like, yeah, because I was going to stop and get some clothes. I'm like, where do you have to get the clothes from? Where is it? Okay, this is the time you need. This is the time frame. And she was so thankful for that because, like I said, we're not only supporting the children, but we're supporting the parents. I don't believe you can work in childcare and only support the child, because if there's not a bridge between the parent and the child care provider that the child feels safe crossing either way, the only person that's going to suffer is the child. Like, we all have to be on one accord. If you do something at your home that's specific to your child, I want to do that in childcare. I want to do that when they're with me, just so they see a healthy balance of people, following the same structure. So I just think we're at that point where, we want to meet their needs just as much as we want to meet the children's needs.
Well, first of all, I have a lot of things. Thank you, number one, for the education on nonprofits. I think that is, you're educating me, and I'm sure the viewers as well. And thank you so much for your responses. But I wanted to change gear a little bit and just dive into Windy Hill Play itself.
Sure.
Looking at your Instagram, I see a lot of different children, different ages, different backgrounds, different heights. When it comes to communication to these children, how do you adjust your communication when it comes to communicating with different children of different age groups? You said, I think when Windy Hill Play started, you said 10 children were in the house.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that they were not all the same ages. So I'm sure different children require different types of communication styles. Do you mind going into those types of styles?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
especially when they're all together. Do you break them up?
We have that all day today.
all the time.
Do you separate kids of how do you
Well, I think first we start off by just speaking to each child as a person.
Okay.
Not less than, not more than, but equal. I'm going to speak to you with the same respect that I would speak to with an adult. Like, I want to speak to you as a person. Now, it depends on their age ranges. With the older kids, you can speak to them in plain terms, okay? I didn't like when you did that. That didn't make so-and-so feel good. What do you think is a better way to resolve that issue? Or what do you think is a better way to communicate the problem? You can speak to them on those terms. And then the little kids, I think they understand in terms more of feelings. Okay, how did you feel when that happened? And you can ask the other child, do you think it's okay to make the, so and so feel bad? And I think smaller children, they don't intentionally hurt feelings, but it's like they see a toy, they want that toy, so it's natural to go and take that toy, but their minds can't process the emotional response that's going to come from the other child. So I think when you really take the time to break that down, like for example, Eric, you hurt Eric's feelings. Eric is very sad when you took that toy. How do we think we can make Eric feel better? So I think when you do more of make it relational emotionally instead of discipline, oh, that was bad, we should not do that. And then it's like by the time you get done, if you speak to them in that way, I think everything you're saying goes out the window. All they know is that I'm in trouble and the consequence for what I did is this. But I don't think they really understand, well, what is it that I did that was wrong? So I think with all ages, you have to be patient, you have to explain, and you have to speak to both children. You don't just reprimand the one who did something wrong. You speak to both of them. I'm sorry that hurt you, with your heart, okay? I am sorry that hurt you, and I'm so sorry you feel that way. I'm going to talk to Eric, and I'm going to explain to Eric that did not make you feel good. And me and Eric are going to come up with a way to make you feel better. And it's just like when you give them that, it's like, okay, Miss Princess is not mad at me. She's just trying to help me understand. I didn't do anything wrong. I just acted my age, and that hurt somebody. So, and Mariah is very good at elaborating on this, but that's just my personal way. Like I go, that's our way, but she elaborates on it really well. I love the way she says this, but yeah, that's how I handle most situations.
Yeah, and I'm coming into this space, I think I knew a lot of it in theory, but then watching how Princess actually played it out, like actually interacted with children in those moments, I've had to take a lot of lessons from her because she stays so calm throughout all of it. And there really is, she's like that stable bow that allows them to have their big feelings, but to feel like they're somewhere safe. And what she was talking about, speaking to the children and narrating for them and talking them through it, this was something that my sister told me years ago. And at first I was like, that's silly. But then when you start doing it, oh, it feels so good. So you're changing, say, an 8-month-old's diaper. They're not at the place where they understand, but say you just start. I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to put you on the table. I'm going to change your diaper. Oh my goodness, that doesn't look like a comfortable rash. I'm so sorry you're feeling that way. We're going to try and make that feel better. I understand this hurts. Like those are some big feelings. And they might be screaming at you the whole time, right? And you're just working through it with them because the alternative is meeting them in their feelings, but that's not helpful. And I've been there as a parent. I don't think I've ever actually seen Princess there, but
listen, when my daughter was a baby, she would cry, I would cry. I'm like, now we're both in the same place, okay? But I mean, that wasn't really beneficial because now you just have two people crying and nothing's getting done. So yeah, I've definitely learned, and I think I've just exerted so much energy in my younger life that it's like literally I don't even have the energy to go above like an octave. Like it's just okay. I hear you. I hear you.
And you know how many times I hear it.
Yes, I say it all the time because you have to let them know like I'm not dismissing you. I hear you and I'm listening. You have my attention. But if you take a moment to breathe, we can talk about this and get to the bottom of it. And I learned this with my own daughter. She's very stubborn. She wants to be heard. She doesn't, even if I know, like you ever hear the joke, kids take 5 minutes to get to one point. So she'll be like, Mom, remember when? I already know what she's going to say, but if I jump past her before letting her get it out, she will be upset. And she was like, Mom, yes, that is what I was going to say, but I wanted to say it. And I think that's all kids. They want to be heard in their voice, how they want to say it. And I think just giving them that space to, say what they want to say and listen. I think all kids just want to be listened to.
Okay. So I have a couple questions. Okay. First question I have, piggybacking off of what you just said. So you said that for younger children, you communicate to them through emotions. And then the older kids, you communicate to them as an adult or straightforward. When does that shift change? Like around what age do you wake up and say, okay, it's your 7th birthday, I'm talking to you like an adult? Like how does that transition?
So I think that it's based on the child specifically. So each response is tailored specifically to that child, because you have some 7-year-olds who are not as advanced as another 7-year-old, you know, and some children, they could be 4 but look 6. So I think once you get to learn that child and where that child is as far as emotional intelligence, that's how you gauge what your response is going to be. And some kids, they're used to people talking to them in a whisper. So you get above a whisper, you're yelling at them whole time. This is your normal voice. So I think, and that's why we try to get to know our families, because if you don't know the families, if you don't know what their life is like at home, there's no way you can provide proper care for that child, because it's too much of a transition to go from a home where people don't speak above a whisper to go into an environment where everyone is yelling. So now you're scared and that child is not going to open up. So just a quick summation is like, and I don't even like the word discipline, but we correct behavior that is specific to that child. And that can vary from each child. It's very broad. There's no blanketed statement I could give you for that. But for myself, if someone knows me, I want them to treat me according to me, how they know me and how they know my heart. Don't treat me like everybody else. Even as adults, we don't want to be treated like everybody else, you know, because we're all different. So I would say learning that child's family, their home background is very important to how you're going to provide proper care for that child.
So have you, or you, Mariah, have you ever been in a situation where a parent might drop their child off at your facility, and let's just say the child is young, and you just stated, you know, you tend to communicate with younger children through emotions. You've seen success in that. But this child comes from a family where their mom and their dad speaks to the child as an adult, and they're 2-3 years old. Have you ever been in a situation where you're conflicted? Like, I understand that this is the household that you come from, this is how your mom speaks to you. Like, does it make you uncomfortable where you have to kind of act like a chameleon with regards to, okay, I see that your mom is talking to you like an adult and you're 3 years old, but I don't really think that this is a good idea. Are you just gonna talk to the 3-year-old like an adult, or?
I actually have an answer to that one. And this was actually a closer situation, and it was one of those things that I was speaking to the parent about, something that I was asking if they would give me permission to do something with their child, right? And they looked at me and they said, "Why don't you speak to my child?" I'm like, because they don't have the ability yet to consent. In a way, it's like in that particular situation, they cannot consent to something about someone taking them somewhere, right? Like I can go up to them and say, "Can I pick you up and bring you over to the swing set?" And that's all fine. But it's like, say for example, I am taking them for a ride somewhere to go get fast food, and that's what I'm saying. This was more of a friend situation. We haven't necessarily had a situation like this at Windy Hill Play, like where the parent, we've had to. I'll come back around to that. But in this particular situation, I actually got taken aback because I was like, I could ask them, but by you telling me to ask them, you've given me permission, right? It's like, and I appreciate that, you know, so it is good. It's like, yes, I can give you permission as their parent because I am the one that's responsible for making decisions on their behalf. And a lot of times with our younger children, there is time, like up until a certain age, if we're doing something that we're not comfortable, if we're not sure they're comfortable with, then we'll ask the parent first, right? Because we still need that parent as the person that best knows that child, the person who is responsible for that child, to allow, like, to tell us this is what makes that child feel comfortable, or no, they're not capable of doing that yet, but they can do this. You know, I wouldn't go putting them on a bike quite yet. They're not stable yet, or something like that. I can't think of a specific example, but with starting to get into that, even that 4-year-old range, you can start asking the child, do you feel comfortable going on the swings? Like, do you feel comfortable with me pushing you high? right? It gets to the point where now you can trust that they're responding based on previous experience. Oh yes, I've been pushed high before and I don't like that. I don't want to go to the moon. And you can pick that up with 2-year-olds too. Normally, like they'll let you
Yeah,
know.
like no.
Yeah, but sometimes with a 2-year-old, you're even trying to see if their hand grip is strong enough
Strong enough to be on that type of
swing.
swing. There needs to be in the one where you got to sit in with the strap.
Yeah. And I hope that answered your question. A lot of times with a child, when you're learning their communication, you're reading their body language. And I have erred in this way before too, because I have big energy sometimes. And I remember speaking in a way that the child shut down, and it was just about doing something I had asked them not to do. And they were with their peers, and group behavior tends to get the better of them. And I spoke to them, and it hurt their feelings, and I really had to step back and evaluate and ask them, if this isn't something you're comfortable with, I am so sorry that I spoke to you that way. From now on, I'll use a softer tone. And I think that made both of us feel really comfortable.
I do want to ask this one question, piggybacking off of what you said. It really, when I said I had multiple questions, it came from you, but you said it just now. Do you believe if you give a child too much power with the communication style, could that lead to a child becoming, bratty or big-headed? Like in one of your examples, when you were not consoling, but looking after a child, you were saying something along the lines of, yes, I hear you, okay, yes. If you give the child too much power with how they communicate to you, how they speak to you, if you don't nip that in the bud quick, could that lead to...
the control question. And honestly, power is a variable in a relationship, right? So when we go into a relationship with a child, it's like you and I going into a relationship. It's like Princess and I going into a relationship, and we have had conversations about our roles and how we respect each other and the roles that we want to play and what roles we don't want to play. And when you start to see that a child is a whole brain, full person, no matter what size they are, and you start treating them like that, then you start building up that relationship from day one, right? Like, yes, I could give you all the power in this relationship. And I can give away all of my voice. I can give away my space. I can give away a lot of different things. And it's the same thing as a parent, right? Like with my parent, as a parent, we give up our bodies. Like they're on us, they touch us, they take our space, they take our time, they take our energy. And if we just let them take, then that's what the relationship looks like. But at some point, and Princess and I have both been in this journey, you have to learn where you need to put up boundaries so that way you're not just giving all of yourself. And then what happens is when you don't give all of yourself, you're coming from this place of abundance. And you're finding ways to re-nourish yourself, and you form healthier relationships. And this is with any relationship. This is a relationship between my partner Dex and I, who's a big part of this operation, right? It's like he has given and given and given and given a lot for this business. And so when he does speak and say, this is too much, we listen, and we ask, how can we help, right? Like, is it the noise? How can we help? And that's where he takes his power back, right? And we're not intentionally, I don't think that a lot of people intentionally try to take power, but freedoms feel good. Just so for children, freedoms feel good. And in our space, there are a lot of freedoms. So when we need to say that's a boundary that we have because it keeps us safe and it keeps us all being able to flow together, we're going to reinforce it, right? And we're going to reinforce it over and over and over again until it becomes part of the language that we speak. Oh, we don't go there because that's a boundary, right? And that's how we find that power dynamic, that flow, that balance. Like, oh, that didn't feel good. Can we lean into that and talk about why that didn't feel good? Why you taking that freedom made me feel like I gave up my freedoms, right? And this happens all the time
Yeah.
with snack time, for example. We end up running around and we're like, we need to put some boundaries into place because you walking around with your snacks all over the place now has me vacuuming for 5 minutes, you know? So that's an example of a power control, right? They think that they have the power to just walk around with their snacks. And we're saying, no, snacks are eaten here, right? That's a power play. And, you know, we don't really like the word power, but you can use it interchangeably with freedoms, right?
So what strategies do you use to monitor and support children's social or emotional development? You spoke a little bit about boundaries. I guess that's a strategy. Is that the only strategy? You know, with regards to emotional and social development? Like, do you, like when these kids are together from, you know, all different age groups, are they all socializing together, or do you split them up? Like, are the children comfortable speaking with someone who's taller than them, you know, different skin tone than them? You know, what strategies do you use to help in that space?
I mean, I think that's where Windy Hill does really well. We're a very diverse group as far as our kids and our families. And I mean, to give credit to the kids, they all play with each other. I mean, we don't even need to institute, okay, this group plays with this group. They all do a really good, you know, job of integrating because they all have different interests, and those interests lead to them playing with this child. Oh, me and you, we like to collect rocks, or oh, me and you know, the girls, they like their Barbies and stuff, but the girls will play a game with the boys, whether it's darts, nerfs, or anything of that nature. I think they do a good job integrating on their own, but if we ever came across a child where we felt was kind of shy, you know, wanted to stay near us, or, you know, didn't really want to play with the kids, of course we would respect that. Little by little, we would support that child in venturing out and, you know, talking to one friend, and the next day is 2 friends. We support kids at growing at their pace. We don't force it, we don't make them uncomfortable, but children, they're curious. They're like, okay, what is everybody over there doing? So we'll walk them over, like, come on, let's check out what these kids are over here doing. So it's very much emotional support, but also supporting them and being the best versions of themselves, because you learn so much from other people. So if you stay close to me, the teacher, I'm doing the same thing in and out, you know, I'm supporting the children, but if you go around these kids, there's no telling what you could learn. And then we do get feedback from the parents, like, you know, ever since, you know, Greg started Windy Hill, he's been, you know, outgoing more, he's been talking to people, and that's the feedback we thrive off of. Because like, that's amazing. Like, they're like, you guys got him out of his shell. And I just think it's natural. It's not something, you know, we force on kids, because if you're not ready for that, and especially some of our kids that are only children, or, you know, they're not used to all the energy, it takes them a moment to adjust. So I think we just support them emotionally and, you know, encourage them to venture out, but nothing is ever forced. And we would hope a child would never be scared to come back, because it's like, they made me play with them, you know. I mean, I feel like one of our kids, he was very quiet and timid in the beginning, and now he's making up games and getting everybody involved. So I think when you give kids the space, you would be surprised of, you know, what they're capable of. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you, in your response, you just mentioned, you know, children being shy. You also mentioned, well, I forgot, mind blank, but you definitely did mention that children being shy.
Yeah.
So talking about, like, you know, new children coming into your program, new children coming into your facility, you know, what do you two in particular do? Bless you.
Thank you.
What do you two in particular do to, like, you know, gain a new child's trust? You know, somebody who's probably not used to seeing 12 children, 10 children running around, different heights, different ages, different backgrounds, you know, for their first day. You know, what do you guys do in particular to kind of ease them into this different setting?
Sure. And it's really dependent on.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hi Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This is usually referred to as a commercial break, but we'd like to have a conversation with our viewers. My name is Princess Rahman, and I am the COO here at Windy Hill Play.
And my name is Mariah King. I'm the CEO here at Windy Hill Play. Windy Hill Play is a nonprofit organization located in Durham, North Carolina, and our mission is to support and provide accessible, flexible, and abundant childcare. On a daily basis, what that looks like for us right now is that we're showing up. We are being present with our families. We're building a community around play-based care for our incredible children.
Now, if this message speaks to you or you feel like you can contribute in any way, we invite you to hit the link in our bio. You can also DM us directly, even if you just have a story. We're very big on listening to our community, listening to our parents, and just having that open communication that allows us to grow and really cater to the needs in our community.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Where they are developmentally. So we recently just had a new 2-year-olds come, and for them, they have big feelings when their parents leave, and they're still in that very normal stage of adjusting in the mornings when they are dropped off. And so this morning, for example, I would come back around to them. I'd ask them if they were okay, but what they really wanted was just to sit in this comfy blue chair. And I would keep coming back to them, and then when they were ready, they just got up and came to play. And it's just, we don't want to rush their big feelings. Like, it's okay to have those big feelings. It is sad sometimes when mom and dad leave, and it's actually different depending on the parent that drops them off, who drops them off. You know, and sometimes I'll see if they want to sit on my lap. We have a friend that they'll just, if they get to sit on my lap in the mornings for 30 minutes, they'll take it for 2 to 3 hours.
That's where the boundaries come in.
Yes, and that's exactly right. And that's exactly where the power play. If they had the choice to just be attached to our hip, some of our children would absolutely just sit here. And that's where we have to think to ourselves, is it yes, it might be easier because, if I put you down, you're going to have big feelings. And right now it might just be easier for both of us to be here. But we also know you are capable of building those self-soothing techniques. And we want to support you in that process and, help you become independent in the space so that you can explore. Because while my hip is super comfy,
we have a lot of running around
there's
to do.
also so much, that you can explore, and there's so many other people that you can experience. So if I keep you here, you're not going to get to see all of this.
Yeah, we're actually doing them a disservice by keeping them in the bubble that they're accustomed to. I mean, I feel like human interaction is so natural, it's needed. Like, humans are made to be around other humans, to be supported by other humans. And I feel like people who consider themselves like a recluse or, antisocial, they have been forced into those corners because of how society may view them or because of the environment they've grown up in. But it's not natural to want to be alone all the time. Even if you have those moments where your social battery is drained, we all get those moments. But to be in that state 100% of the time, humans were never made to function like that. So when you apply that theory to a child, it's like, I know you're comfortable here, but I guarantee you, if you take one step outside that bubble, you won't regret it. It'll be the best thing you ever did.
Yep.
So we kind of take that approach, and like I said, we don't force it on them, but some people, they naturally just get up and go play, and some kids, they need a little shadow time where they're our shadow, and then they may venture out. But we have haven't had a child yet that has come there and stayed in that bubble.
Right.
Like, we have yet to see that.
Yeah, and I mean, really, it's just like you start making observations. You're like, wow, I see your friend out there playing with mud. And it's like, oh, that doesn't interest you? I see someone over there coloring. That doesn't interest you either? I see a bike outside that is just calling your name. And it's just like exploring ideas with them until you start to see, oh, that got them interested.
They like the sandbox. Okay, so we'll focus on the sandbox. And we'll bring all the kids to the sandbox.
You start bringing toys down here, like the cars. No, that isn't it. Like my son, for example, you bring a bouncy ball out and his eyes light up. Right, but he's very territorial. So
yeah, so it has to be his bouncy ball.
So in both of your responses, Mariah, you spoke about feelings directly, and you hinted at, children having feelings. Of course, we all know that children are a ball of feelings, ball of emotions. What do you do when you have a child that shows aggressive behavior, to either you or to other children? How is that dynamic? Everything up until this point has been joy and happy, which is great, but feelings can be hot and cold. So
I have an example that I'm happy to pick up on.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Please,
how do you...
So, in, this particular friend, they were larger, they were stronger, so, and, I can take some responsibility for this, and I did learn a lesson that they were starting to get overstimulated. I tried to redirect them by moving them inside, and they really didn't like it. And they just went into this panic mode. So I thought that bringing them inside for a moment would help. I think I just caught them a little too late in their big feelings. And the best thing I can explain, they were so caught up in those big feelings that they started to hit me. And so we started walking, right? Because they needed to move. They needed to move, and so we start walking, and there's a path in the woods, and I just keep walking, and I get on the phone with their mom. I say, this is the situation. They're very upset. I'm just gonna keep walking unless you have any other recommendations. And the parent, they're like, really, every time when this happens, we just have to take it case by case. And eventually they just were done. It was like eventually we just walked and walked until finally they came back from it. And this might be something that really, if you've ever had like a panic attack or those feelings where you're so caught up in this idea in your head and you can't get out of it, and then it's like all of a sudden reality starts to come back. And this might be for someone who has experienced a panic attack before. It's like reality just came back, and then I said, do you want to go in and maybe get some water or a snack? Like, how can I help you? And that was the situation where it's like the child it's like I couldn't have them beating on me with the little ones.
Right.
There's been a time where big hugs help. I have noticed that. There's big hugs will sometimes calm a child's, but there might be a time where a big hug will send a child deeper into a spiral.
Like they don't want to be touched, in that moment.
Yeah. And they'll let you know. And so it's just like each time when you see that big behavior, like depending on the size of the child, you approach it differently, and depending on the personality, you approach it differently, and you try to just hear and see what they're frustrated by. But sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to it, and I know that parents will connect with this. Like sometimes you didn't do anything. You put the spoon in the mac and cheese the wrong way.
And you open the bar and it broke.
They're on the ground and they're throwing a fit, and in these cases, we've done it too, where sometimes you just have to let them ride it out, and then when they're ready, you're right there. And it's like, I'm right here and I'm ready. I am here for you when you're ready. I'm not walking away from you. I'm in here with you. Like sometimes we do have to walk away, but I'm right here. I'm gonna go take care of this child, but I'm gonna be right here. I'm gonna come back and check on you, right? So it's just trying to be present with those big feelings.
I doubt that this has ever been the case, but I just want to ask, have you ever had an instance where you've handled an aggressive child a way that did not align with how the parents would have wanted that to happen?
Sometimes
sometimes I feel like how I sometimes respond to my children in a way that I don't personally then look back on or approve of. Does that make sense? And I think that we tend to have the bigger responses with our own children because it feels like it's you're looking at the big picture. You're like, oh, if you're doing this now, it's going to turn into this, and then the next thing you know, it's going to become a characteristic, and you're like,
they're going to be 16, blaming you.
Yeah, and you're like, so if I don't nip this in the butt now, then I'm going to have a child that isn't listening to me, or isn't talking, and so. I've responded to my children in ways that afterwards, and Dex and I, my partner and I, both do this, like where we can now come to each other and feel like that didn't feel very good. Hey, maybe I could have handled that better. And I think it's just having that moment and leaning into it and saying what would better have looked like then, right? Instead of just like pushing past it, like no, they deserved it. It's like
right.
No,
that's the easy way. It doesn't feel good. And I just think with our kids being with us in like our work setting, that transition between them seeing us as a parent and then the other kids seeing us as teachers, sometimes they can try to push boundaries just because they know we're filling a teacher role right now. So when we go home, you know what's not allowed to be in our home, but you're here doing this when you know it's wrong. So it's explaining to them that this is not okay behavior, and I'm your mom, and I need you to set an example for the other kids, because what I've taught you will go a long way with the other kids as well. It's not kind of like bigging up your chest and like, oh, I'm here so I can do this. It's leading by example. And I always tell my daughter, you are a natural born leader. People will follow you anywhere you go.
They will.
But the responsibility that comes with that is making sure that you're doing what's right, because if you do something wrong and a little kid follows you and they get hurt, that's on me. So let's always try to make sure we're doing the right thing. And if you're not sure what's the right thing, come and ask me or come tell me what's going on. So, I find personally sometimes I'm a little bit harder on my daughter because I want her to lead by example, and she's so smart. And I know that in certain instances she knows it was wrong and she chose to do it anyway, and then you have other children following you, and that's not okay. So I mean, it is a tough space to navigate because I don't want her to feel like I'm coming down on her more than the other children, So I try to be blanketed with everyone. I treat everyone the same because, like I said, I'm going to love on your child like it's my child, and I speak to everybody the same. Like, I don't yell at my child. I don't yell at those kids. I try to just be very level-headed. Let's talk. Let's figure this out. But we all have to be on one accord to ensure, first of all, for safety purposes. And you have to think about it. These people are entrusting us with their kids. And when something happens, you can never blame a child. It's on the adult no matter what happens. And then I just try to, me and Mariah just try to remind each other that, like, yeah, these are our kids. We may let them do this, but we're responsible for other kids. So let's not do that. Right. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for your responses. My next question, have you ever had an instance where a child has been ostracized by another child? And if so, how did you handle that? If the answer is no, then the answer is no. But I'm just curious, if there's been any bullying or teasing due to someone looking different or sounding different,
I mean, I think in every child care setting, there's going to be a little bit of that, but me and Mariah are good. It's like, we're shutting that down. Like, if everybody can participate, we won't do it at all.
Oh, goodness.
So it's teaching, we teach our children that if it's something that everybody can't be included in, then we just can't do it. And I think kids get to the point where it's like, well, if y'all really want to do this, let's either teach them how to do it or include them, even if they're not, as good at it as the next person. I mean, and that's a lesson in life. Like, you don't want to exclude people because they could surprise you. You never know what somebody is capable of. You never know how strong somebody is. You never know how smart somebody is. So I think we're like literally teaching life lessons here. It's like, we're not going to exclude anybody. And of course, kids, sometimes they tease, sometimes they call each other names, sometimes everybody wants to be like the class clown. But, and it's also a good lesson when the roles are reversed. Like, you have the kid that's like calling a name, being called a name, and I say, that didn't feel too good. Now, do you remember when you said that to so-and-so? How do you think they felt? So just letting them feel how it feels to be on the receiving end of that, I think they come to terms with it. Like, I don't want to be that person. That didn't feel good, you know, so.
Yeah, and, you know, and when you were talking about the different ages, this really starts to show up at around, I mean, because we see it with my daughter now, and she's going on 4.
Yeah, I would say
you know, and so it's like 4 and older that you start to see this with. But one example that came to mind, actually, when Princess was talking was, this example cracks me up too. Like, you start to get into that 7-8-year-old range, and they start to become interested in girlfriends and boyfriends, and you're like, this happened too early. But the next thing you know, you have boys over here giggling about something and girls doing something, and you're like, you know, I shut it down, because personally I was like, the Windy Hill play is not a place where we have girlfriends and boyfriends.
Yes.
Like, we are all friends here. Like, you know, first of all, like, I just don't personally feel comfortable with like, I don't think they understand it.
Well, friendships is enough work. You don't even have to think about that type of relationship. Like,
yeah,
you know?
and we can all kind of remember middle school and high school trying to navigate that space and feeling wholly unprepared. And I was like, so how about let's just drop it? Let's not play this game at all. Let's not use this language, and let's all just be friends, right? Because the moment that it starts asking, like, you're like, this person likes that person, I was like, we all like that person.
Yes, we all care about that
we all
person.
like them too. They're cool. They're awesome. It's like, and so we turn it around, instead of one person being targeted as, you know, the alpha male or the alpha female. You're like, no, we're all cool, and we're all integrating. We're all vibing. Let's now all go dance.
Yes,
you
let's
know?
go
And
have a
it's
dance
like,
party.
Let's nip this in the bud.
Redirection. You got to shift it. So it's like, oh, okay.
But I mean, those conversations, because I mean, this might be a personal experience for me letting down my guard, but like, those conversations in middle school were never about me. It was never like, you know, does Mariah want to be my girlfriend? It was like, and that made me feel isolated in it. Because I was like, if no one is interested in me, then what does that make me?
Right.
And I was like, I don't want anyone to feel like they aren't the it person here. They are all the it people. Like, you have it. You have everything that you've got going on, and we love you for it. So.
Perfect. I couldn't have said it better myself. Yes.
Well, question, and this came up with one of your responses. I know that you guys refuted the word discipline, and please take this opportunity to, you know, explain why. But I'm going to ask the question anyway. What do you guys do? Because again, I'm thinking in my head, you know, 10, 12 kids. I'm sure. What's the most kids that you've had at Windy Hill at all?
I think we're at like 18.
Yeah,
18 kids.
Yeah, during the summer last year.
So I mean, I gotta ask, like, you know, what do you guys do in particular, Dex? You know, what do you guys do to maintain, you know, a sense of discipline, a sense of order at your facility? And you know, you want the kids to move freely, you want the kids to have fun and interact, but you don't want it to be too crazy. So
of course.
Yeah. And I think about the word discipline, like, you think about discipline as more about discipleship, right? So discipline stems from leadership. It was like, and I think that Princess and I are both very compassionate leaders. And I think that we have built trust with our children, and that makes redirection very easy, because, you know, for me, like, a majority of the children, I only have to look at them. You know, like,
you know that's not right.
and like, you see,
and
like,
they will
outside of your own
self-correct.
children?
That's
outside,
all of them at Windy Hill play. Like, some will never, like, I mean, I could probably count on half a finger if one of the children who have been with us the longest who's ever needed redirection. And it was only a scenario where they just thought, anyways, but not all children need redirection. And you'll hear this a lot in the childcare space. It's like 2% will take up 98% of your time, right? And we've experienced that. It's like, the next thing you know, by the end of the day, I was like, wow, I said that child's name a lot, but they also just required a bit more direction in terms of what was appropriate. Like, no, we're not going to bring the bats into the house. The bats are for outside. And then I'm saying it again, but I'm trying to say it in the same tone. Remember earlier when I said we don't bring the bats in the house? We're going to keep the bats outside.
Yes.
And it will happen again with children. And there's some personalities that they're just going to keep trying. And we keep reiterating it until finally if we can't play responsibly with the bats are going to go away for good. And sometimes that's the end result. And so that's really what discipline looks like. It's like, if you can't play responsibly in this space, we have other spaces for you to play in. And it's not trying to make them sad about it. It's just like, you're not integrating well into this space. It's not fun for the other friends here, and it can't be fun for you, in most cases.
And we have like a decompression space where, you know, you're separated from the other children, but you have the opportunity to read a book, do a puzzle, draw a picture. It's just at this point where you are emotionally, you're not doing well playing with others. So let's take some time to yourself, and then they can come tell us, oh, Miss Princess, I'm ready to go play. And I'm like, okay, we have those same problems. You got to go take a minute to yourself again. And then also, I think like when you give children so many good, easy choices to choose from, they rarely will choose something bad. Like, it's like, okay, you have the swings, you have the sandbox, you have the bikes, you have the cars, and you're going to go choose to punch somebody in the face. Like, that doesn't line up. Like, you have so many good things that you could pour into. Most kids will not just go haul off and do something, you know, that's not right. So I think it's just giving them that freedom and giving them so many good options and choices that they choose not to make a bad decision. And I think that's where some kids, they don't do well in traditional settings, because if the choice is sit at this table or sit on this rug, and there's no in between, it's like some kids, they need to be active to feel fulfilled. Some kids, they need to be moving their hands, they need to be talking, and I think they get labeled as having behavioral problems. But I more so think it's the setting that's not adapted. The setting is not adapting to the child. They rather the child adapt to the setting. But there are some adults who can't even adapt to certain settings. That's why you have that person they call Miss 1,000 Jobs, because she's just trying to find the setting that respects who she is. So I just think that sometimes we give these children these impossible tasks that some adults can't even adhere to. So it's just having realistic expectations and goals for the children to meet. I think that's where you'll find the most success.
So Mariah, you mentioned how you and Princess, of course, are deemed the leaders at your facility. Do you see your individual children taking on, you know, kind of like sub-leadership roles? Like,
oh my goodness, yes.
That is
but
a
they
good
also
question.
know the space the best too. So, you know, her daughter is a leader, like, to the T. Like, she has all of the characteristics. You know, I recall coming in one day and she has all the children, there's probably 4 of them, all sitting on a bench, and they're waiting for her to spin in the swing and come over and give them a tap on the nose.
Like, they're like, is it my tap? And I'm like, kid, what's going on?
But yeah, so now right in that scenario, you have 5 children that are being entertained by one other child, and it's like, so we don't always, we're not, I would say that very rarely are we the ones that are the people that are orchestrating the activity. Like, we can and we will come in and orchestrate the activity. They love having Princess do red light, green light. Dex comes in and plays basketball with them. I'm typically the one that'll start the music up, you know, and so we can organize it. But then if no kids come over and dance with me, I'm like, I want to dance by myself, and that's fine too.
Want to do our own thing.
But if Harley comes over to dance with me, I'm sorry, I don't mind.
No, it's okay.
If her daughter comes over to dance with me, all the other friends will come over and dance with them. So, you know, we do see that leadership characteristic in the children that are also have tenure there, the ones that know the space, that feel safe there, that know what they can, like, what the boundaries are in the space. You know, they'll come in and they'll right away go to the thing that interests them, and that excitement is so electric that it attracts other people to it. And so it's nice having a fluid environment because one person can come in and it'll shift the space in a positive, mostly,
Yes, like we have one child, he loves Google, and I'm not talking like, oh, Google, hey Google, if I mix red and paint together. I mean, he asks some of the most unique, and even I'm listening like, what's the answer, Google? Like, you know, he'll ask how many people were like born in China today or something, and the kids really tune in, and it's just like, I could have never came up with that, like a game with where you just ask Google questions, any question you want. And I just think like different kids' ability for like, what am I trying to say here? So basically, I feel like some people learn leadership later on in life, but to be able to grow up in that environment where it's like, oh, I went to this place called Windy Hill and I was in charge of doing this, or I led the kids on a treasure hunt and taught them how to do this. It's just having that naturally be instilled inside of you at a young age. It's something that could eliminate so many fears that come later on in life. And it's like, that's the type of environment you want your child to be in, where they're pushed to be the best versions of themselves.
Right.
So, and then side note, one thing I was thinking, our kids, they are kind of sub-leaders, but like every parent, we get a break from our kids too. So half of the day they're in school, they usually come to Windy Hill, play around 3:30, and we close at 5:30. And then we put our kids in summer camps because it's also healthy for our kids to be away from us and have other voices be in their space and not just, you know, be around us 24/7. So yeah, when our kids are there, they know the space very well and they tend to be leaders, but we also give them the opportunity to explore other avenues in different settings.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your responses. Before I ask my last question, I just want to nip this in the bud. I just want to give you guys another opportunity to speak on this. You know, Windy Hill Play, you guys pride yourself on being flexible and affordable. And I believe that those two, you know, words are very triggering to parents. Please, like I said, I know we talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but if you want to just explain, you know, how is that so, or give some more detail as to, you know, how you guys, Windy Hill Play, differ from other childcare with regards to those two words, flexible and affordable.
I'll take affordable. So I feel like with most institutions, they deem affordable as, okay, what's this family's income? What is affordable for this family? We deem affordable as what is affordable for all families, no matter your social economic background. What's an affordable price that can reach everybody and everybody still be okay? I believe you looked into a study and it said that most people were paying 75% of their income for childcare. Or was it 65?
I don't remember the exact numbers.
Well, we just know it was way too much.
Significant,
like it was significant, and it's like, where do you have money for anything else? And when we saw that, it just was like, we can't base this on people's income, because you could have, if we did it based on people's income, you'll have some people paying, you know, $300 a week, where other people are paying $150, and it just doesn't seem fair. You know, we want to meet people. We just want to be affordable to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's actually a definition for affordable childcare, and that's 7% of the household income. But then when you start to break that down, every household is different, right? How many working individuals are in that household? And then, then you're taking that portion, taking 7% of it, but that does not meet the criteria of what a lot of people have to pay to have childcare. And then when they are paying for childcare, it's very rigid, and this is where I'll lean into the flexibility. What they have access to is very rigid, right? So you're paying for 40 hours a week, and you're paying a decent amount for 40 hours a week. So to not use that 40 hours a week feels like you're not getting a return on your investment. And like when they're in childcare, you feel like you have to be working to make it make sense for why you have your child in childcare. And so by the time I started looking deeper into this, I started to recognize that the childcare serves the economy. Right, so if you aren't a part of the economy, you're expected to parent your child. but parenting your child is hard.
And it's a job.
And it's isolating. And as Princess said earlier, as humans, we just crave connection. And parenting is so isolating. And childcare makes you feel even more isolated because you're not interacting with other parents in the childcare facility. Every year you're rotating into a new lead teacher or a childcare provider. You don't form connections. And so when we speak about being flexible, it is like, how can we meet you where you are and create childcare that's coming from a community standpoint? It's community based, but it also sees you for your unique family unit and respects that family unity is a priority, right? Like if Princess wants to spend time with her child, she should by all means have access to it, right? She shouldn't be thinking, well, am I bringing enough in these hours to be able to take this time off to bring her out of childcare, and then I'm losing this much money in childcare, and maybe I'll just wait until the weekend. And then we're trying to cram it all in on the weekends and create that connection. It's like, but what we found is in our community, no family uses our community the same way. Every parent uses it differently. And I think that we have really shown how you can have access to childcare and also be valued as their primary care provider. Like you are the parent is their primary care provider, and they should have access to their child when they want to have access to their child, because that is the child's safest place. That's their nourishment. So, that's when we think about flexible, that's the reason why we lean into that word. How can we meet our family's needs uniquely?
So my last question for today, I've seriously enjoyed this conversation. So, what techniques do you use at Windy Hill Play to, stimulate that creative, that creativity factor within the children? Is it music? Is it art? I know that people, you said that, you walk around and, people are outside, but, that creativity aspect.
I mean, we have done, we do so many different activities. Music is definitely one of them. Art is one of them. I mean, we have Legos, blocks, magnet tiles. I mean, we painted acorns with oatmeal, decorated them, hung them in the trees. We made forts, we made teepees. I mean, we are play-based, but we very much like to learn through play. We just feel like it's easier on the children and it holds their attention more. But, we have play coordinators that come in with activities. So it's an array of things. I really couldn't narrow it down, but what I like to say is there's no curriculum. I know some people, they're confident in curriculums, but curriculums are not geared to a specific child. It's just a broad overall of things that whoever made the curriculum feels like each child should know. But I feel like each child brings different knowledge to the environment. So if one of our kids, he wants to be an architect, so he's really good with the Legos and the magnet tiles, and we say, give each child something, teach them how to build, a garage or something. We let our kids teach each other and we teach them as well. But it's all, through projects, through play, and we mix it up so much. No day is ever the same. And we're very happy about that because, if you're doing the same thing Monday through Friday, kids get bored. They're like, oh, we're doing this again. So we try to be creative. We change it daily. We have a lot of different things we do.
And there's a lot of materials that you can use to make creative things. It's like cardboard, scissors, stickers, glue, slime. We've had science experiments because there's so much you can do with baking soda and vinegar and dye.
Dye, yes. Yeah. I was going to say food coloring.
Bubbles and water and soap. And I mean, there's so many different materials that you can use. And, and there's ways that you can use it respectfully too. So that way it's not like you're going out and buying in bulk extra material. You're using things that are all around you.
Yes.
Right? Like, I think children spend an hour one day breaking up wood sticks with other wood sticks.
Yeah. Yes.
And I mean, this is exactly what parents
and
will
then
say,
they
like,
collected them all, and then we end up building a teepee out of them, because it's like one idea leads to a newer idea that leads to something else, and the next thing you know, we just created something out of nothing.
Yes,
Like,
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and parents will say this a lot. Like, you go out and you spend $100 on this new toy, and the kid wants to play with the box that it came
exactly.
in. It's like,
Exactly.
and it's so true, and we see it all the time. And you know, one thing that I do want to know is that we aren't taking the place of our other partnering communities that have learning structures and curriculums. Like, you know, her daughter is in a childcare space, and they're incredible there.
Incredible,
She's part of the Durham Pre-K, and that's a great program. And we're not trying to fill that space, and we're not saying like that space is so important. But there's days where there's teacher work days. You know, there's summer breaks, and there's afternoons, and there's other times where children they just really enjoy the freedom. You know, we have one child, their parents say they just wanted to come and play, you know, they just wanted to come and see their friends.
Yes.
You know?
I think the curriculum is 80%, and then we fill up that 30% void, because it's like when you're in school, you need an outlet. And I think we help parents help their children have that outlet instead of coming home and bouncing off the walls. It's like, okay, you go to school, then you go to Windy Hill play, and then you come home, and that's our time where you're all played out, so we're just bonding, and it's comfortable for both of us. So yes, I'm all for, don't twist my words up, I'm all for the curriculum, I'm all for learning, you know, the ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, but I also know that my child specifically, she needs an outlet. Like, she needs to run, she needs to flip, she needs to run around with no shoes on. And if I deprive her of that, I wouldn't be doing my job as her parent. So, and I see that in other parents. Like, we have some children that are homeschooled, and they're like, you know, I got the school part down pat, but my child needs socialization, and that's where Windy Hill comes into play. And you know, our kids are brilliant. You know, they're not just like, hey, you know.
Well, I mean, one of our most brilliant children learned how to climb a rope for the first time at Windy Hill.
Yes, we've had 3 kids that learned how to ride bikes at Windy Hill. So it's like we fill that void where you want your child outside, you want them to experience and socialize. You know, we fill the void outside of what school can do. Yeah, and
while also having quality care providers. Not just pat my own back.
Exactly. I'm telling you. I mean, if I didn't start something like this with Mariah, I would be looking for something like this for my child. I mean, and that's how I always gauge how am I doing. Like, what I want my child to attend Windy Hill play, and if it's a no, then I'm doing something wrong. But literally, my daughter loves it. Her kids love it. So.
Yeah.
And do your activities around creativity kind of mesh with critical thinking, or do you have different activities for critical thinking?
Most definitely.
Yes, critical thinking is something that happens every day as you're just working things out. You know, because the next thing you know, you've got 3 scissors and 4 kids, and the children have to figure out for themselves how to process that. And that's all a part of critical ability. Like, take the information that you have in front of you, right? Look at your environment and look at where you want to go and see what you have to do to make that happen. It's like, is it, and this is the question, is like, is it fun for one of our friends to not have access to scissors? And a lot of times our children will process that all on their own without assistance. And this is likely happening in classrooms all over the place, because you think about that 1-on-20 in schools, like the teacher cannot be there all the time. Our children are learning critical ability all the time. We just get to see it close up in a very organic setting, in a lot of different organic settings, and then we call it what it is. Like, wow, look at you processing this situation so well and being so kind and considerate, and you're just growing, and we're so proud of you, right? And we're calling it out for what it is. You know, it's like, you might not be working towards like a specific standardized goal, but man, are you reaching something really incredible. You know, it's like, you just are doing you, and that is so amazing to see.
Yes, yes, and that praise is very important. I feel like kids, they feed off of that. You know, just noticing the small things, giving them praise, like, oh, you didn't have to do that, but you did, and I'm proud of you. Like, that was very good.
Well, Princess and Mariah, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
It
having
was a great
us.
conversation. Thank you. I love the energy from both of you.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. And hopefully Windy Hill Play will be broadcasted to the world in a positive light. And I hope the best for you guys and the best traction and the best continued success. Thank you so much.
Thank you for bringing us here.
Absolutely. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have finally reached the end of today's episode. I hope you've enjoyed getting to know both Mariah and Princess, and you now see the value in putting your child into a childcare facility that will entice and influence your children to move freely, explore their capabilities, practice critical thinking, and use their imagination. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you in my next episode. Bye for now.